Debs.
Law, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. I'm doing lots of thinking at the moment about what it means at this stage of life's evolution and societal changes, to kind of think long term about maybe some smart little micro decisions someone could take now for a happy, healthy future, because there's a lot going on in the world, isn't there, Debs?
Oh my God, every time you either turn on the radio, yes, I do have a radio, or the television, there's always something. Somebody's thinking something. Not necessarily the right kind of thinking, but definitely something is going on, because it's just like mad, isn't it, really, what is going on at the moment, Law?
It is. And of course, us too, and the rest of our team, you know, years in the game of learning and development. And honestly, Debs, I just think that some of the magic of workshops now, whether they're in person or virtual, is actually just giving people some time to think away from the day to day, just to be able to reflect. And it's incredible when you put some people together and they're just given some time to think what insights and reflections they can come up with.
Yeah, I think you're so right. We did a workshop last week for one of our clients, Law, and they all said it was so lovely to have that space just to explore and think slightly differently and not have that, headache of having to come up with a decision, really. It was more of a process of let's work through our thinkings, which we were, going to explore. This is what we're doing this series, isn't it, Law?
Absolutely. So our 5-part mini-series is going to be all around focusing on quality thinking. So what does it mean to practice reflexive thinking, which we'll be covering today? And of course, I'll try not to bang on too much about AI and the robots, Debs, but
I have got a question for you, Laura.
Yes. And then we're going to be exploring a couple of different lenses in our 5 parts. So whether that means compassionate thinking, people dynamics thinking, strategic thinking, and reflective thinking, all giving us some opportunity to invest in our own self-led continuing professional development. Because if there's one thing we can probably guarantee, Debs, in terms of in this ever-evolving world of work that we're finding ourselves in, the premium roles of the future are going to require a human that is able to think, not ruminate, is able to plan, not anxiously worry, and to be able to use and channel all of that mental energy to be able to make a great decision in the moment, for example, without just waiting for a machine to tell us. So hence we thought, let's focus on this.
Yeah, definitely. And I thought we'd start by actually, because this is a passion project of yours as well, is to think about what that means. So, Law, I'm going to chuck some questions at you. Please feel free to not overthink them, see what comes into your head. But they're of them, some of the models that you have shared over the years in workshops that, we've all adopted and put on our carousel of content that has come up. But it's not until you hear them explained by you how much you recognize and realize how important this skill is. And I think you're right, it's going to be such an important skill to keep going with, not rely on technology to give us the answers, but our own little brains can do that. So, Law, I'd love to start with a really simple question for you, if that's okay. Okay, so
Bring it on.
I love that. When you think about today's workplace, whether that is remote, whether it's hybrid, virtual, face-to-face, how would you describe the quality of thinking that's happening? And are we thinking differently than we were 5 or 10 years ago?
Ooh, interesting, Debs. Immediately makes me think of conversation I had in an in-person workshop last week with a long-standing client of ours. And the joy of running open workshops is there's so many varied job roles and responsibilities. And actually, those workshops are pretty much the only time people have a chance to be able to network and share information. And it was someone had made the comment about how when do you get that chance to be able to catch information, chat it through, and then reflect on after, if you're going straight from one virtual call to another. So we're missing those corridor times. So the corridor moment of being able to quickly reflect on one conversation you've had, and then also quickly plan then for the next one. Whereas if you're just flicking from one link to the next, where's that chance for your brain to be able to catch up? So I'm absolutely seeing, as a result of the rapid shift to home working and remote working that we saw kicked off by the pandemic, that actually there are now, the chickens are coming home to roost. The amount of clients that are saying collaboration is down, well-being is potentially down because there's more and more research coming out that, if you don't talk to anyone and have a chance to think things out loud or think with people, then it can all build up and things become bigger than what they are. So I absolutely can see in the last 5 to 10 years, we've never had to be so quick on demand with our thinking, with so much little resource to actually be able to have the time to think.
Yeah, that's such a good point. So do you think we are becoming quicker thinkers or better thinkers?
Ooh. I think we're probably becoming very good at using our heuristics. So heuristics are the time-saving devices that we use to think quickly, which typically involve bias.
Yes.
So your cognitive bias, of which that's an umbrella term for like 20, 30, 40 different biases that you might have. But for example, current pain bias is we've got this meeting booked and I know we should be thinking strategic, but actually for the first third or the first half of that meeting, everyone's chatting about the email that's just come through because it's current and it's pressing and there's always going to be a human bias towards that. So have we become better thinkers or quicker thinkers? We've probably become very more skilled at having to use our cognitive biases and our heuristics to be able to think quicker. And then it's not until you then realise, I think we've crossed a boundary line there, that you get a feedback or a grievance or something that you realise that actually maybe I could have put more thought into that conversation I've just had. And interesting, Debs, I've been running a series of communicating with impact sessions recently, and pretty much the overall takeaway from it all is actually just 5 seconds thinking before saying something or writing something can make a world of difference.
Yeah, they can. And I think that's such a good point, Laura, because it's the stories that our brains tell us as well, isn't it? That unconscious bias, that thinking, differently about what's going on. And I suppose when we only now see snippets of everybody's lives in the workplace, maybe through a screen, I wonder whether that's becoming even more pronounced in the way we are having conversations or thinking things through. And, we can come up with a solution, a scenario, based on our own experiences. So why do you think our brains are wired like this? And why do our biases exist?
Oh, well, I think we have to go back to our grandparents about 1,000 generations ago, because those ancestors of ours that were unable to think quickly, oh yes, that grass is rustling, I think I better move, got eaten or didn't get saved and then didn't go on to have us. So we are the quickest, most sophisticated thinkers in terms of like reading around us, that their version that there's ever been. But of course the world is slightly different now. And if we've got the machines that are able to think within the blink of an eye and assimilate millions of lines of data, then what does that then mean for that human thought process? And in terms of being able to think differently from the machines, it's what's that human edge that enables us to bring, not just crunching through lots and lots of data, but inferring the storyline from that and being able to articulate it in a way that makes 10 different stakeholders interested, potentially with 10 different perspectives that they're looking for. For example, you might have one part of your organisation who really want to hear about how this initiative is going to save the company money. And you might have another part of the organisation that don't give two hoots about whether that new initiative is going to save people lots of money. They just want to make sure they get home on time. So how you would position that requires a bit of thought. And that favourite phrase that I've got, Debs, that I nabbed from a director years ago, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. But you can put salt in its oats.
Yes.
So how do
Classic.
I salt the oats of this message? A little bit of thought, could just be 5 seconds, just to be able to reframe it and then land it in a more thoughtful way so the other person thinks and receives that in a positive way.
Yeah, and I suppose that is part of us slowing our own thinking down, isn't it? So how can we practice slowing our thinking down enough so that we maybe question our assumptions about what we think we've heard or what we believe we've heard or the perception we've created, or our brain has already made up the story without all the information? How can we slow our thinking down?
Oh, that's such a good question. Do you remember that game that Carlos got everyone to play called the Yes Let's game?
Oh, yes.
So the Yes Let's game is where you ask sort of group of delegates, right, we're going to pretend to do acting out baking a cake, and then you have to go, yes, let's. And it basically forces your brain into a new pattern of open-mindedness and willingness to give something a try. So there's also some things that you can do from a thinking perspective. So this was an idea that was gifted to me via a delegate on a session 3 or 4 weeks ago, where we were talking about thinking and quality thinking and what it means to have creative perspective, basically. And he said he had a highly successful uncle of his who used to play this little game on the way to a meeting where he knew he was going to have to think creatively.
Okay.
And we called it the word-disassociation game.
Right.
You have to, first of all, think of a randomly generated word. So this could be 2 of you, could be a team of you, could be just you on your own sitting on a bus. And you've got to think of a randomly generated word, and then you've got to think of a word completely disassociated, no pattern at all.
Right.
And then another one and another one. And it forces your brain to step out of patterns and easy thinking using, if you say grass and then you say green and then you say blue and then you say sky.
Lawnmower.
Lawnmower. And it forces your brain to then think differently. So if you feel like you're getting a bit crusty in the old cognitive department, then this is the circuit breaker, really, to be able to actively look from a word association game.
That's
and
a good
also
one.
A self-generated thought is going to be much more resilient to memory loss. So if you are putting some ideas together and you've just copied it offline or got your ChatGPT or your Claude to do it, it's not a self-generated thought. And here's the cost potentially that has. For the convenience of quick thinking, it saves you thinking time and finger typing time. But the long-term cost is it's not in there as a resilient memory because according to Bloom's taxonomy of thinking.
Yes, which we're going to get you to explore, Law, because I thought, what is she talking about when you first introduced me to this? And I thought, is she talking about something else about, what they do with stuffing animals? I don't know what that's called, but I just...
Taxidermy.
Oh, that's the one. What do you mean by that? Help us and tell us what it means.
Okay, so if at the moment you're thinking Bloom's taxonomy of thinking is stuffing 2 glass eyes into a dead animal, then...
It's definitely not. That's where my brain went, Law.
Wow, how deliciously human, Debs. How lovely that you thought of that. So this is nabbed from the world of school and academic education.
Right.
Practice. Pedagogic practice.
Pedagogy,
yes. And basically I ripped out page 2 and then assimilated it then for the world of adult learning and development. In short, there are 6 levels of thinking. And they increase in the quality of thinking. And what's meant by quality is the harder your brain has had to work for that thought, the more resilient it is. So memory is the imprint that thought has made. So if I don't actually have to think something through and come up with my own idea, then my brain hasn't had to work for it. So it's kind of easy come, easy go. So remembering and recalling info is easy to absorb it in that short term. You don't have to work that hard for it, but you have to do a lot of repetition for it to then really stay in. And people don't have time for 8-hour long training sessions to go over one module. They want a module an hour now.
Yeah, literally.
So how do you then maximize memory recall in a time of pressure when that human needs to recall it? And in short, the highest level of quality thinking, level 6, is creative.
Right.
So asking people your classic coaching questions of what do you think could then help, rather than do you want to do X or Y? Because it's a self-generated thought. Number 1, is much more resilient to memory loss when you sleep that night, because according to Ebbinghouse's law of forgetting, 80% of the day's news gets swept away when you sleep. Okay. Otherwise, your brain would just overload, and you it's the equivalent of defragging on a machine. You have to sort of file things away. And then the other benefit of a self-generated thought is you're much more motivated to put it into practice the next day because you've come up with that thought. So it's going to really bug you if you then don't do it.
Yes.
So rather than conforming to someone else's, you're coming up with your own sort of thought pattern.
Right.
So I love it, Debs, when different worlds transfer over each other, because this is why coaching has become such a big thing. And, interactive training, because if people think for themselves, it's a much more resilient memory, and we're much more likely then to want to have the willing to put that into practice, because it brings free will. I came up with this idea, so I'm going to put it into practice.
I'm going to give it a go. And then I suppose the skills is to then making sure you're not making any assumptions about anything, or you've got an unconscious bias towards something, or maybe it links to what you always talk about. I always get this around the wrong way. The divergent versus convergent thinking as well comes into it as well, doesn't it, around this? Because this is, I suppose, a little bit like you're saying about giving yourself permission to think different. And that's okay, but coming up with it in the first place. So, but before we go on to that bit, I had one question. Where do you think, based on what you've seen maybe over the last 4 to 5 years since we've come out of the other end of what's been going on and the impact, where do you think most workplaces naturally operate when you look at Bloom's taxonomy?
I think they operate probably in that middle of recall. So evaluate. So evaluate and judge are kind of like those middle ones.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of workplaces in that eat, sleep, work, repeat, copy paste, but make it 10% cheaper and 20% faster.
Yeah.
And when people's days are so highly optimized, Debs, where is that opportunity for a brain to process it and daydream and come up with new ideas? So I think a lot of organisations are kind of in that middle bit. We're sort of limping along, but potentially we're not firing people up because we haven't got the time allocated so much anymore to the downtime or the between time to then be able to, our brains then catch up with what the visual cortex has seen and what your auditory sensors have heard.
Yeah. So what's the risk for that, for organisations and managers and leaders that don't give time to go and think at that creative, free will level of thinking? What's the risk?
Oh, I think the risk is you just end up with thousands of living robots on your payroll. Because if a human can't express themselves, have time to think, if it means that your role isn't firing you up or engaging you or taking your attention, then where else is that brain going? But it's potentially getting more and more kind of fatigued. So I think the risk is people just get less and less engaged, more and more using synthetic ways to be able to get those thoughts going. And that is just not, I just firmly believe, Debs, that the whole of our evolution does not suggest that stop the humans thinking and everything will be fine.
No, definitely not.
Surely AI and tech is our surfboard, but we've got to still be able to swim.
Absolutely.
If I can't think for myself anymore, then how are you going to know if you're safe? How are you going to seek consent? How are you going to hold boundaries if we're just used to complying and nodding along with what a machine tells us?
Yeah, and it's a lazy way of thinking, isn't it, Laura? Because that then doesn't tap into maybe listening to what our intuition is telling us, or potentially we could lose that gut instinct that goes, oh no, this isn't quite right. Or I have no idea if that is it, but you're talking there, it just made me think, how do we encourage them people to go, no, I can see you're thinking something else. So again, it's questioning what you're seeing, isn't it? What's your gut telling you? What's your intuition? And if we don't use it, we'll lose it, right?
Yes.
Because if we're not then saying, well, I think that's wrong, or my belief is this, or I think we should explore it this way or that way, then those conversations, as you said, might as well just be put into a machine to do, rather than let's have this different way of thinking, this different perspective and give ourselves permission to think differently, which I think, that comes into that we mentioned earlier, the divergent and convergent thinking. So tell us more about what is the difference and why is it so important to recognise it?
Okay, fab. So I'm going to do my best to weave in two different concepts.
Right.
So here's how my little brain understood around it. So when you converge on a point, so when you converge on a point, that's where you take mess and you make it tidy.
Right.
When you diverge out, so if you've got a divergent thinker, or loads of us know the phrase now, neurodivergent perspective or requirement. So that's where you got one and then you turn that into many. So imagine that the visual for that creative process probably looks like a bit of a diamond. So you're starting off with a point. How do we make more money? Or how do we increase customer satisfaction? Or how do we reduce patient risk?
Right.
So that's the point. You then explode it out with divergent thinking.
Yeah.
So what are the 10 things that I think I could do? Or reverse brainstorming is good. Can be quite useful. What's the worst thing that we could do? So that can unlock many. And then out of those 10, that we then refine it to then converge at something that might be practical and yet creative. So you're then converging on the 3 things that we want to pitch forward, or the one idea that we're going to go for. So imagining it as like a diamond shape.
Yeah.
So 1 point, explode it out, and then with that mess, tidy it up into a point. And the point at the bottom should kind of match the problem statement that you got at the top. So that's a nice way just to sort of visualize that convergent and divergent. Typically, we will have a preference towards one or the other. So do you prefer to tidy up mess, or do you prefer to create mess and sort of think from a creative point of view? And then that's why Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hats.
Yes,
roll this one from around the carousel, Debs.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about that one because it's an oldie but a goldie, and it's been around, and I heard somebody talk about it the other day, and I just went, oh my God, I haven't heard that for ages. But is it still relevant in the way that we think?
Debs. So I tell you what, I mean, the delegates can be the judge of whether it is or not, but it is a firm favourite as a post-lunch. Let's get practical and play the Edward de Bono 6 thinking hats. So imagine the scene. You've got Aha, Tears for Fears, and Johnny Hates Jazz. I'm thinking of all the 80s.
Killed the cat. Curiosity killed the cat.
Curiosity killed the cat. So you got your 80s tunes on.
Right.
And enter Edward de Bono. And Edward de Bono wrote his book, 6 Thinking Hats.
Yes.
And the idea was that whether or not you've got a personality type of this way or that way, whether or not you've got a confidence level of this or that, each of us can put on a hat. Yeah. So even though it might not be your normal way of thinking, it encourages you to step outside of your own confines and bring a different thought perspective.
Right.
And he put colours on those hats, and it was the black hat thinking that really sort of turned it into a New York bestseller, New York Times bestseller. Right. Because the black hat perspective is bringing the cautionary or the kind of the risk perspective without looking like you are anti-change. So let's say you're sitting there and it's just one of you around a table, or there's many of you around a table, having these 6 perspectives that you can just very easily ask as 6 questions, and each works as kind of 3 opposite pairs. So you've got head and heart. So the white hat is the head, logical, thinking, data. The red hat is the heart, intuition, gut feel, emotion. You've then got your yellow hat and your black hat. So yellow hat is optimistic. What's the best that could happen? Black hat is the cautionary. What's the worst that can happen? What's our plan B? Yeah. And then you've got blue hat and green hat. And green hat is creative, fresh, different perspective. And blue hat is order and control. What are we doing? How long have we got? What's the output? So you've got these 6 different thinking hats. And what that then means is, even if you're sitting there as a party of one, and you need to think and generate some thinking quickly for a conversation or a project or an interaction you're about to have, these are 6 questions that you can ask yourself to unlock quality thinking that does its best to not sit with your own personal preference bias. Yeah. What's the worst that can happen? What's the best that can happen? What's something new that I can try? What is the output that I'm going to be measured on? What's the facts and the head perspective, and what's the gut feel and the intuition, emotion perspective? And it really helps technical experts unlock a bit of the emotion story. And it helps frontline teams unlock a bit of the logic that they might not have access to that data. And then the goal is you've got much more kind of quality thinking, and you're avoiding groupthink, which is individually clever people making dumb decisions. So that's the idea about groupthink.
There's a few of them, isn't there? But anyway, let's not get into that.
Well, we're all human, Debs.
We are only human. We're not quite the robots.
No.
And I know that was something, it wouldn't be a conversation without chatting about the robots. And you've already mentioned them and AI and everything else. So therefore, you did mention this right at the beginning as to, therefore, whether we're becoming a bit more lazy or whether it's making our own thinking an even more valuable asset. And because I suppose if technology is giving us all the answers, Law, what thinking skills become even more important?
Oh. Do you know what I think it all boils down to, Debs? Mm-hmm. It is giving full and undivided cognitive attention to another human.
Lovely. So it's that real connection.
Yeah, because it then comes at personal sacrifice. So you and I are investing our full cognitive attention to each other. We're not doing anything else. I'm not having this conversation with anyone else at the same time. Whereas when I'm in conversation with an AI, they could be doing that to a million other women at the exact same time.
Yeah, true.
There's no sacrifice because when we're investing our attention in each other and our full thought processes, we're not doing it anywhere else. We could be doing something else. And then when you know that someone has given you that undivided thinking time, you know they're doing it out of choice and because they want to. So there is that sense of being recognised by someone else. And I think the roles of the future that require quality thought and quality interactions, that is going to be the USP, the unlocker, because it's being able to give your undivided attention in a time-poor world. That is the ultimate recognition gift that any human can then give. So you might not come up with 1,000 ideas and your AI could have. Yeah. But those 10 ideas, as a result of sitting here in full harmony with someone else, they're worth their weight in gold because you've been chosen for someone to give attention rather than just pay $20 a month.
Yeah, I love that. And that's so important, isn't it? When you think about it from that perspective, because I know we play around with AI, right? But it's still not us. It doesn't make you think, I believe, properly, if that makes sense. And I think it's like, no, I don't agree with that, actually. This is my thinking. And I mean, it will respond back to you, but it's the ability to not just go with the easy option, isn't it, really? And, to flow with, that was it. I didn't have to really think about that. It did it all for me. But at what cost?
Yeah. But of course, Debs, like with convenient food, microwaves, convenient food, just like, a fork in a cellophane cover. There are times where you absolutely need that just to get through the day to day, to have convenience. But it's not, you wouldn't use a microwave meal to celebrate, a key wedding anniversary.
Well, you would hope not.
I mean, the moment you hear at a wedding breakfast or whatever it's called, just the sound of microwaves popping off in the background. But I think maybe that's the analogy to use. Your AI is like your microwave.
That's a good point. That's really nice.
Yeah, that's your microwave. But
I like
kind of hand cooked, home cooked, that artisan approach is going to become even more premium.
Oh my God, that's such a good way of looking at it. And I like that, actually. It's like, do you want to just keep hearing a pinging of a microwave, or do you actually want to have something that's been cared and looked after and nourished and proper, not just some old rubbish that we're dealing with?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been time, care and attention. Yeah, some TLC has been put into that. So I think it's going to be fascinating over the next 3 to 4 years. So. AI is only going to get smarter and smarter the more we interact with it. Yeah. And how do we ensure that when we need a microwave meal, we need convenient thinking, we've got it, but we also maintain that art and craft of being able to cook for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And think for ourselves. So I'm going to ask you, my call to action is to you, but also to the listeners. And there's a question to get you thinking. So my question is to you, Laura, and whoever's listening, is thinking about this. What's one question everyone should ask more often? I think that one question that we should be asking more often is, let me just pause for 3 seconds. What do I really think about this?
Nice. So the pause.
The other thing is to catch. Yeah. Let me just pause for a second. Yeah. What do I really think about this?
Love that. Thank you. So those of you who have also come up with yours, please feel free to share us what your question is or what we should be doing. It'd be so good to hear it, wouldn't it, Law?
Yeah. And we love a microwave meal. AI
Yeah,
is
we
brilliant,
do.
but
Yeah, it is. However, it's lazy.
part of a balance. Yeah, and part of a balanced diet.
Yeah, I like that. You still need your extra bits.
Yeah.
So Law, I mean, I've loved this conversation with you, and I cannot wait until we delve even deeper in it. And because I know your brain just takes all of this on, and the models that you use and the way you bring them alive in a workshop or in a conversation with anyone, I think is something we can explore even more on the next couple of episodes. But what would be your share the secret then, Law?
So my share the secret would be, let's say you're thinking, oh, I don't know how I feel about AI. You know, if it's all feeling a bit doom and gloom, get a mate to then listen to this, because as always, Debs, it's bringing an optimistic, can-do capability aspect to this. Because if us working adults or any adults don't get their head around the narrative around this, then, you know, what legacy are we leaving behind in the workplace for the new generation then coming in? So yeah, if it all feels like it's getting a bit scaremongering around AI, get a mate to listen to this, and then together, you know, colleague, you can think about where are some of those human first moments that where we have those quality thinking. And of course, Debs, I'm so looking forward to Flip It next week, where we're going to be focusing on compassionate thinking,
my gosh, yes.
Which I just love hearing you describe that. So they've got a nice kind of build on with this. So what would be your call to action, Debs, from this focus? It's the first in our 5-part mini series around quality thinking, and this one has been about the reflexive human first thinking.
Yeah, I'm actually going to think about what you said around my call to action is to keep being curious. If you're inside you is wanting to ask that question or wanting to explore it more, then ask it. Just keep the curiosity going, which can open up a whole nother world, right? And goes to so many different levels when we're curious about it. So that's what I would say. Keep being curious is my call to action.
Beautiful, Debs. Beautiful.
Love it, Law.
I can't wait to catch up and chat about compassionate thinking on the next one.
I'm looking forward to it as well. I'm going to get my thinking cap on. I don't know which one of the Bonos I'm going to be using, but I might try them all.
Absolutely. I think that's a bit of red hat thinking, the compassion. And then, and of course, green hat, you know, the clue's in your name.
Yeah, there we go. Yes, I need to remind myself. Fresh perspective. Yeah, definitely. I love that. Law, will you have a good week? Get thinking, create those spaces that enable people to pause, to think, rather than just react. And I think, it'd be a great week. Looking forward to next one.
Next one. Right. Yeah. Well, love you loads. Have a fab week.
Love you too. Love you.
Love you. Bye. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at contact@secretsfromacoach.com or follow us on Insta or Facebook. If you're a Spotify listener, give us a rating, as it's easier for people to find us. And if you want to know more, visit our website www.secretsfromacoach.com and sign up for our newsletter. Here to cheer you on and help you thrive in the ever-changing world of work.